Do you remember Phoenix Jones? You probably don't, so let's get started. Ever since Marvel came out and decided to start shoving superhero films down our throats, it seems like the general public just developed an obsession with superheroes and superhero culture. Something about dressing up in all these different outfits and going out to stop crimes that the police either won't or can't stop is just very fascinating to a lot of people. But that's why it's so crazy to me that a lot of people don't know that there are groups of real superheroes that legitimately exist in this world. And no, I don't mean like firefighters or police officers or people who just do normal shit like pick up trash on the side of the road. I'm not talking about them. Yeah, you guys are heroes and everything, but that's not that kind of video. I mean people that dress up like they're going to Comic-Con every day of the year, and they aren't going just to have like a good time and buy some merch. They're going to stop a bank robbery because they know that in the event of a robbery, their chances of getting shot are about 30% higher than yours. Yes, these people are real and they're out here, but most of them don't really do the kind of superhero thing that you would typically expect. A lot of them just kind of do things like clean up graffiti or help out at the local soup kitchen, and would be much more likely to run away from a crime and get help than directly put themselves in harm's way. So these people will typically leave and go get help, either from authorities like the police or from more capable people to handle the situation. Like a bitch. That's where Phoenix Jones comes in. Phoenix was significantly different from his contemporaries in that he had a very high level of professionalism about him. There was just a certain level of tact that Phoenix brought, in that he would show up to the situation and then immediately insert himself into it to try and stop whatever was going on, and be the cooler head so that things could come to a consensus. And if worse came to worse and you didn't want to settle down, he'd beat the dog shit out of you. Yeah, I forgot to mention just kind of like the visual appearance of a lot of these people who would show up and do these things, these superhero acts. Not all of them, mind you, not all, but most looked something like this.
It's the biggest piece of dog shit.
Right? Pretty much just your run-of-the-mill person who ran out and either bought a costume or just made one wholesale from stuff that they found at the local dump. Not Phoenix. Phoenix would show up, and again, look, he's looking pretty professional, very well put together suit, but you'll probably notice that he's fucking jacked. If Phoenix shows up to a situation, typically his stature alone would just diffuse the situation. But if you were crazy enough to try and challenge him, right, like he was a Dark Souls boss, he's trained enough to where he could just put you down. Phoenix is clearly running a strength stamina build. You did not want to be a generic Joker villain selling drugs on Phoenix's turf, because he was more likely to send you to God than he would the police. But I think we're getting a little ahead of ourselves. Let's slow down and take a step back, because like any good superhero, Phoenix has an origin story. Phoenix says that he wanted to take policing into his own hands after several incidents caused him to change his view on how things were handled in his area. And Phoenix really did embody the classic superhero persona, in that he was really humble about the things that he did. He didn't do them for fortune or fame. He did them simply because they were the right thing to do. The first was when someone who I can only imagine looked like a GTA avatar broke into Phoenix's car. After returning to the vehicle, his son slipped and fell onto the broken glass and cut himself. Phoenix was later told that several people saw the incident but were too much of little pussy bitches to do anything, so they just kind of let it happen. Later, Phoenix says that he encountered his friend being seriously assaulted outside of a bar, and after calling 911, he put the mask on from the earlier break-in. That's probably not the smartest decision in the world, Phoenix, but okay, and made a commotion until the police showed up. And once again, no one else in the area did anything during this time. I feel for Phoenix. I really do. It seems like the crime in this city was just out of control, and everyone else just seemed content to T-pose in the area whenever someone got more than 2 stars. So I guess if someone had to do something about it, it was gonna be him. Phoenix would actually go on to stop a few more petty crimes, but eventually he had to create a full costume and a pseudonym after he became too recognizable for the things that he was doing. I really hope he wasn't wearing that same break-in mask, because how ironic would that be if Phoenix was arrested and they just assumed that he was the guy that broke into his car and nobody believed him? He was like, no, this is, I'm not the guy. The guy's over there, and they just weren't having it.
Get your black ass down!
But this is where it really does feel like it's like a superhero film, and why just this whole thing with Phoenix was so interesting to me, because after making the suit and, you know, getting the name and everything, Phoenix was pretty official in how he did things. See, there was a comic book store that was in Phoenix's area, and whenever Phoenix needed to like transform like Superman in a phone booth, he would go into the comic book store. The comic book store had a back room behind one of the shelves where he would change into his costume and then come out to stop crime. That shit is so fucking badass. Now, I have to ask, like, after the first time he does that, right, I'd question, like, how no one knew who the fuck he was. Maybe he went out the back or something, right? But even then, I'd be like, he's got to come back at some point, right? Let's just gloss over that. All I gotta say is that, in and of itself, just that alone is just so superhero-like. There's plenty of other shit that he did, but that single aspect is what hooked me on, like, finding out more about him. Civilians saw him as something of a local celebrity in the area, and even the police, who initially viewed him as more of a nuisance, kind of softened to him over time and understood that he was more of a help than he was a hindrance. Over time, Phoenix even began to expand his operations, teaming up with local superheroes in the area with names such as... hold on here. Green Reaper, Buster Doe, Thorn, No Name, Catastrophe, Thunder 88, Penelope, Purple Rain, El Cap. You get the point. You get the point. It was a lot of people with like Xbox 360 gamer tags that he would team up with in the area. Together, they would form the Reign superhero movement, which was essentially the Justice League, but with less money. Now with a team and a reputation, Phoenix was able to be even more confident in his activities. And I'm not gonna lie, these guys were pretty official. They had patrol routes, combat training, levels of escalation for when things went wrong. They honestly covered so many of the bases, I'm surprised they didn't have contingency plans in case members of the team went rogue. Things were honestly going great for Phoenix. He was one of, if not the most recognizable real-life superhero that was doing this at the time. There were others in the area who were also doing a similar thing, but it seemed like no one else took it as seriously as Phoenix did, and did it with such professionalism to the level that Phoenix and by association his crew did. If Phoenix kept this up, this really could have been something that changed the area for the better and maybe spread over to different parts of the globe. But unfortunately, not all good things last. I hope you enjoyed that nice, wholesome build about the good things in Phoenix's career, because it's now time to talk about the fall. When it comes to being one of these real-life superheroes, it's kind of a given that you're going to bump heads with the cops from time to time. You're kind of skirting the line for what is and isn't legal a lot of the time, and that makes things more difficult for the police. And not only that, you're human, just like everyone else. So sometimes you make mistakes, and when you do make these mistakes, they can inadvertently make a situation worse, which is kind of what Phoenix did, because he pulled an Icarus and started flying a little bit too close to the sun with his antics. In October of 2011, Phoenix was actually arrested for assault. I guess there was an altercation that was taking place, and Phoenix kind of misunderstood the situation and thought it would be a good idea to just pepper spray everyone in the area. Now, it should be noted that Phoenix did not stay in jail for very long. He was actually only there for a few hours before he posted bail, and no charges were filed against him. But this action really kind of hindered his relationships with police, which were better than they were worse, but it didn't take a lot for the police to kind of turn on him and want him to stop his vigilante business once again. Phoenix actually had to appear in court later that month though, and while there, during an interview, he would actually take his mask off and reveal his secret identity to the world, where everyone would discover that Phoenix Jones was Etika. It's not really known why Phoenix decided to unmask himself. It wasn't really required of him, and it was just something that he just kind of seemed to do off the cuff of things. And while it's kind of an honorable thing for him to do, to kind of show the public who he is, I don't think he really thought through what would happen if he decided to unmask himself to the general public. Before, you were this faceless entity, this protector, but now that he's been unmasked, he's just one of us. And it's kind of endearing that he's one of us, but at the same time, now people have a face to put all of your actions to. You're someone that is much more grounded than you were before. It's much easier for the general public to scrutinize a person than it is for them to scrutinize an idea. There were also ramifications for his personal life as well. No longer could he just dip into a back alley or behind a bookshelf in a store and have people be none the wiser. They knew who he was now, so when things went down in the area, they were much more inclined to just follow him or observe him. He wasn't just a nameless person in the masses anymore. And don't even think about holding down a job after all this. Imagine if a famous YouTuber worked at a local McDonald's. Do you think people would just leave them alone and let them do their thing? No. Now imagine that same YouTuber is a superhero on the level of someone like Batman, and you can see why most employers didn't want him around or to hire him. You gotta move. You can't just eat anywhere because you'll just be in the public. You're no longer inconspicuous, so forget just tailing somebody. You're just trying to get information discreetly. By all accounts, Phoenix revealing himself, given the profession that he had chosen to have, was a dumb fucking decision. But even if he hadn't unmasked himself, things would have started to go downhill anyway, as certain elements of this crime-fighting gig were beginning to unravel right before everyone's eyes. For instance, due to disagreements in the group, the Reign superhero movement had begun to disband. I'll be honest, the drama with the Reign superhero movement, it's kind of its own thing and would require its own video. So if you guys want me to talk about that, I can do some research and then, have all of the facts with that. But this is Phoenix's story, so I didn't want to delve too much into it. So if you want me to talk about that, please, you should really like the video. You should comment that you want me to do that. But that's why I'm not going too much into that. So moving right along. The police were also treating Phoenix like a disgruntled ex-girlfriend by this point, and were very vocal about them not wanting him to do his Streets of Rage antics anymore. It wasn't all bad though, at least not at first. Phoenix would return to mixed martial arts for a time. Oh yeah, did I forget to mention that? Yeah, before doing the whole superhero thing, Phoenix, back as Ben Fodor, actually had a short but relatively impressive mixed martial arts career. But once again, this didn't really pertain to the superhero thing, so I did not think that it was very relevant. But yeah, Phoenix would return to the ring, even bringing his iconic Phoenix Jones mask on occasions, and picked up a few more dubs to add to his record. I hope this further cements my point that Phoenix was just a custom Tekken character, and that any normal person that encountered him on the street would get two-pieced like a box of chicken. But even though this was a glimmer of hope in the otherwise tumultuous career of Phoenix Jones, a dark shadow would loom over him once again. Seemingly without warning, Phoenix would vanish from both social media and the general public, something that would immediately begin to concern a lot of people. This was a man that lived in the spotlight, both when he did and when he didn't want to. So for him to just suddenly vanish, the first question on everyone's mind was, where is Phoenix Jones? And unfortunately, we would get our answer. So it turns out Phoenix had been arrested again, but this arrest was considerably worse than the first. While the first arrest could be seen as more like a misguided attempt at putting justice back into the world, and even though he was in the wrong, Phoenix had supporters who knew that he was just trying to do the good thing at the end of the day, nobody was supporting Phoenix for this second arrest. Phoenix Jones, the superhero, was arrested for selling meth. And not only meth, but while being investigated by police at the time of arrest, Phoenix and an accomplice were also in possession of cocaine.
What?
Of all the drama to get involved in, of all the things to do, for Phoenix to go out and just sell drugs was the biggest slap in the face to the community that it had ever seen. This man was really out here keeping the streets clean so that he could dirty them himself. In a single night, Phoenix had undone all of the good that he had built up over this time. Nobody was fucking with him after this. The police department was done with him by this point. After arresting him, they confiscated all of his gear, stripped this man down to a level 1 grunt, and threw him in a cell. Former teammates and other heroes disavowed him, and the general public started treating him like he was a white celebrity who'd made a racially charged tweet. It honestly was very sad to see. This was a man that had risen so high just off of his hard work and wanting to do good. To see him go to this level was just something that I honestly don't think anybody wanted to see of him. It was a very cruel reality of what can happen to someone when they just gotta do things to get by. It really was just, all jokes aside, just a sad situation. And Phoenix's career never really recovered from this. After this incident, even after being released, just his legacy had been tainted so much by his actions that no one was willing to back him anymore. Be it other heroes, former teammates, the community, damn sure not the police. No one wanted to see him out in the streets helping anymore, because now people really didn't know if he was helping or if he was back up to his antics of, well, selling drugs. Like Batman after beating a man into a coma for jaywalking, Phoenix faded into the night. I was able to find small snippets of his hero activity after this incident, but things, again, never recovered to the level that they were before, and it seems like a short time after this, he just stopped entirely, as his social media accounts or any news stories, I just don't see him there for anything pertaining to the area. So it just kind of seems like he got out of Dodge once the situation died down a little. And that is the story of Phoenix Jones. Local man turned hero, turned cage fighter, turned drug dealer. Bit of a sad ending to the story, but, you know, unfortunately that's life. As a black man, this hurt me even more because, of course, we'd get the first successful black superhero and then he'd turn into a drug dealer. That shit is just unreal. But how crazy would it be if years later, Phoenix returned to the spotlight, but instead of being his superhero, he was now a supervillain, and he was just as good of a supervillain as he was being a superhero, and he had a bunch of goons with him from his days of drug dealing that all had identical outfits to him, but less intricate to show that he was the one in charge. That shit would be nuts. And then the city would have to band together against him like something out of a movie. That would actually be peak content. If that shit ever happens, I'm gonna be first on the scene, right? I ain't getting involved in it, but I will damn sure cover it. Thank you if you made it all the way to the end of the video. I really do appreciate it. Sometimes I think I can just be boring when I rant on things for long periods of time, but people tell me that they enjoy it, so I really do appreciate you guys very much. I do have other videos that I have made that I would love if you would go check out, or if you would like or subscribe to the channel. That'd be amazing, because I'm still a small channel and I would like to break 1,000 at some point. I have other videos coming out. I promise, they are coming out. So you have things to look forward to. But that is all for me for today. So thank you for sticking around once again, and I will see you later.